Although last season was a complete disaster for the most part for the New York Rangers, one of the few bright spots on the team last season, of course, was Will Cooley, who was that young player who ended up going into his second season of being in the NHL after having a pretty solid, 2023-24 season of being a fourth liner. He ends up putting up some solid numbers, has some decent impact, but then heading into this past season, of course, his second season in the NHL, takes a massive step forward in his all-around game, continuing with that physicality that he brings and the energy, but also really brought a much better defensive and offensive game as well, really breaking out into an all-around really great and valuable top six caliber winger. And with that being said, I think heading into this upcoming season, there are two players that I really have my eye on that I think and I'm hoping can finally take that step in their game, and they may be a little older and a little further on through their careers than someone like a Will Cooley now, but these are still two players that are young, that are still in their sort of, early to mid 20s that I think are still in that spot where they can possibly take a massive step in their development. And if they do, it could be a really big help for this Rangers team as they look to get back on track to being a playoff team. And those two players, of course, are Alexis Lafreniere and Braden Schneider. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at each of these two players and really talk about how and kind of why I think they really need to sort of have that big jump in their development this upcoming season if this Rangers team really wants to get back on track to being a true Stanley Cup contender. So let's get right into things here. And of course, we'll start off with Alexis Lafreniere, and this is a player, of course, that was taken first overall back in the 2020 NHL draft. Things obviously have not gone quite as planned since he was drafted. He hasn't quite broken out into that true kind of first overall pick caliber guy, but that doesn't mean he still can't be a, good and well above average NHL player, or at least a top six caliber forward. He definitely can be that. And I think at moments, of course, he has been that, but at moments he also has kind of gone quiet and has some streaky kind of moments there where he is and maybe going quiet for, it feels like a week or two in a row where he's not putting up, any points at all. So I think that's one area where Lafreniere really needs to try and become a more kind of consistent player. I think that's one area that he really try and work on, but this is someone that I think if he can have a really big breakout, I'm not saying, the breakout needs to be some 80, 90 point season, but if he can just become a kind of guy who's just kind of got a little more of a consistent game there, and once again gets back on track, kind of putting up that 60, 65 kind of point mark, which he almost kind of did in that 2023-24 season there, where he put up 57 points in a complete 82-game season. I think if he can get back on track to that kind of 60-point mark around there, that could really be a big help for this team. And, last season there, of course, we saw, for the most part, the entire New York Rangers team kind of take a bit of a step back in their game. Lafreniere was not the only player, for example, that took a bit of a step back last season there, including a couple of his line mates, and of course Panarin and Trocheck, although Panarin still did have a pretty great season. A guy like Trocheck did take a pretty big step back as well. So there were many, many players on this Rangers team that did, step back a bit, and I think Lafreniere was one of those guys for sure, but he is still very, very young, and I definitely think there is still another level to his game, and if he can hit that this upcoming season, that would be a major help, because not only does Lafreniere have the capability of being, I think, at least 50, 60 point kind of player minimum. That's minimum potential there at this point. But I think he also has the kind of solid kind of defensive game there for the average winger in the league, right? He's not below average defensively, I would say. He's above average. So I think that in itself is quite nice. And also, he does bring a lot of toughness and at moments some energy and physicality, which I think is also, of course, a pretty big thing. So just in general, he's a pretty solid kind of all-around forward, and like I said, may not become that true first overall pick caliber guy, putting up 110 points per season or whatever it is, but he still could end up having a very good long NHL career, being a great, valuable top six caliber forward, which I definitely am hoping and expecting he can do. And if I had to guess right now, I would probably imagine Alexis Lafreniere will once again be alongside Panarin and Trocheck for a forward line. That's kind of my guess. I would assume they go back together because, they have had a lot of good success in the past. Maybe Mike Sullivan and his crew kind of decided to go in a different direction, which I would be okay with as well. But I do think that, if they go back together there, Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafreniere, I really do expect them to be a whole lot better than what they were this past season. And next up here, we've got Braden Schneider, who will be entering his 5th official season in the NHL now. And this one I am hoping will be his big kind of breakout season. He has been a really good and solid defenseman for the most part, a pretty reliable kind of more defensive defenseman in the NHL for, quite some time now. But I think there is definitely still another level to his game there that I'm hoping he will be able to hit this upcoming season. He has consistently been able to get around that kind of 150 to kind of 170 kind of point mark, hits wise. The last 3 seasons there has gotten 147, 167, and 146 kind of hits per season there. So he has consistently been around that kind of, like I said, 150 to kind of 170 mark there, something around there. Hit wise, he's a very physical player. He blocks a lot of shots consecutively. The last 3 seasons there has 130, 133, and 145 for block shots. So consistently around that kind of 130 to 145 range for block shots. The one kind of 45 to 1 kind of 70 range, I guess you could say, for hits. Like, he is a very physical and tough player. And I would definitely say that Schneider, for the most part, is a pretty good, reliable defensive defenseman. I definitely think he is capable and, should be kind of in the top 4 of this Rangers team heading into this upcoming season. But I also think adding in someone like a Vladislav Gavrikov could be a really interesting kind of maybe mentor or kind of role model almost for someone like a Braden Schneider who could really kind of model some of his game after a guy like Gavrikov's. They have a lot of similarities in their game. I'm not saying they're the exact same kind of defenseman, but they are quite similar. Of course, both have some solid size there, both more kind of shut down, bit more physical, kind of tougher guys. I mean, I think Schneider has a little more kind of toughness to his game there, but I still think there are a lot of similarities in their game. So I do think that could be a kind of plus there for Schneider to kind of, look at a guy like that and kind of see what Vladislav's been doing for years and years now in the NHL and kind of learn some of those kind of things. So, that could be a plus in itself for Schneider, but I just think now if he can get that opportunity in the top 4 there, and that would probably mean if he is in the top 4, he's probably going alongside Will Borgen, which I've been talking about quite a bit, thinking that it would not be a bad idea at all. I think that pairing could be pretty solid there for the second pair. And then for the third pair, you're able to have either on the left side, Urho Vakanainen or Carson Soucy going alongside Scott Morrow, which I think is probably what I would rather see instead of having a guy like Soucy up on that second pair alongside Borgen, and then have a guy like Schneider on that third pair alongside, let's say, like Urho, and then kicking out Morrow to the kind of healthy scratch spot. So that's kind of what I would rather see there, Schneider in that top 6. And I think if he does get that opportunity, hopefully he'll be able to run with it. Like I said, he is a really solid, kind of, for the most part, reliable, pretty consistent, good defensive defenseman, but I really do hope that he's going to be able to kind of hit that next step in his development there. I've been pretty high on Schneider for quite some time now since he was drafted by this team. I thought he could end up being a pretty solid player, and of course he has been pretty solid, but I just am hoping that there is still that next level to his game there, and if there is, he could really be a phenomenal top 4 caliber defenseman to have for years and years to come. And heading into this upcoming season, if this team really does want to get back on track, though, to being, like I said, a true Stanley Cup contender, then having guys like Alexis Lafreniere and Braden Schneider kind of take that next step forward in their development will definitely be a big factor. Anyways, that's going to do it for today's video. If you have enjoyed, definitely don't forget to click that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content, as I do post every single day a video about the New York Rangers. That's a guarantee. And also, definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on today's video. What are your thoughts on Lafreniere and Braden Schneider possibly taking that next kind of step in their development throughout this upcoming season? Do you think it'll happen? Do you think they'll kind of stay stagnant from where they were kind of last season there, stay around that kind of range? Do you think they'll take a step back? Let me know your thoughts on these 2 players, and also which other kind of players do you think could possibly take that next big step up in their game? Maybe they're a kind of younger guy or kind of mid-age there. Let me know your thoughts on who you think could be the next guy to really take that big step up and have a massive impact on this Rangers team that's kind of unexpected maybe. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next one, and let's go Rangers.